Lindsey Singer joining us now, Cover Rising Action. Lindsey, how are you today?
I'm good. How are you guys?
Doing great.
Doing
Thanks
great,
for
Lindsey.
joining us.
Yeah, happy to be on with you.
All right. So what is new in Colorado? Or I shouldn't say new. What's going on in Colorado politics we should know about is what I should say.
Well, the breaking news is the Democrats are saying that there will not be a special session. They had until September 1st to potentially call legislators back. But the Senate President Leroy Garcia today said there won't be a special session. So that means that Proposition CC will be on the 2019 ballot as it is.
Okay.
And right now it's wildly unpopular. So we are a no on CC, and right now we're winning.
Good.
Okay, so what is CC?
Yeah, we should explain. I mean, we know what that is, but Lindsey, explain it to our listeners.
Yeah, so referendum CC will be, again, this November 2019, and it's going to asks taxpayers to permanently give up our tax refunds. So it's forever, and it's a statute. So that means that the legislature in future years can decide to spend that money on whatever they want. So it's basically a slush fund for the legislature. They say this year they're going to spend it on transportation, which is sorely needed, and also on education. But we saw a few years ago, we did the same sort of dance, and that's not where the money was spent.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the money was spent there, but then they took other existing funds and spent those elsewhere. So they really did a shell game there. And so I think people are realizing now that this really isn't a solution, and it would be a permanent change. So it's really not a good thing for Colorado.
No, and the other thing I've noticed too, and I haven't got a chance to talk about it yet, is there are certain counties where they are trying to take the Tabor refunds, pass some laws internally to that particular county whereby they could keep some of the Tabor funds. Is that something they can do?
Yeah, I believe it is. I think Jeff Coe is one that's doing that this year. So I think it is. I think that's even more reason for people to get involved on their local level and see if that's happening in your local level. But yeah, it's all an effort to dismantle the Taxpayers' Bill of Rights. This is sort of the Democrats' first step in trying to pull it all apart. So the Taxpayers' Bill of Rights is one of the main reasons that we have the #1 economy in Colorado, and it's really important that we keep it.
Well said.
Yep,
Fully
absolutely.
Agree. All right, national popular vote. How are we doing there?
So that's some other good news this week. So the national popular vote was passed by the legislature, also signed by the governor. It would add us to a compact of states. I don't know how much we want to get into the details, but basically Coloradans are mad about it. They are angry. There's a grassroots effort to repeal this law so that Colorado would not join the other states. And basically what joining the other states would mean is that we would give up our Electoral College votes in a presidential election, and our all of our electoral votes would go to the national popular vote candidate, which means that higher population states like New York, California, they would get really the vote on who becomes president. So the repeal effort handed in their signatures this week. They got 227,000 signatures, which was over 100,000 more than they needed to get, and it really just shows how how upset the Coloradans are about this and how fired up they are to repeal it.
Yeah, and this is one where, well, I shouldn't say one. This is another area, it's probably a better way to say it, where our legislature did not listen to what the people wanted in the first place. SB 181, which we'll talk about in a moment, is another one of those areas, but the national popular vote, our elected leaders just basically, pardon the language here, but they stuck their middle finger basically at the electorate in Colorado and basically said, we don't really care what you guys want. This is what we're going to do. And this particular the repeal effort, I believe, will pass handily, Lindsey, and the legislature is going to learn really quickly that they can't get by with certain things because it is not the will of the people.
Yeah, so the people of Colorado can give that middle finger right back. And I think it's important to note this is going to be on the 2020 ballot. So I know it can get confusing just because of what it is. That's going to be 2020. So we're going to be talking about this for a long time. And I'm sure that the more people learn about this, the more fired up everyone will get.
Yeah, and Lindsey, thank you. I mean, again, it's one of those things where we sort of get tired about talking about it because we fully understand how our Electoral College works and so on, but you make a great point. One of the things that I've learned in radio is about the time I get really, really, really tired of talking about a subject, the audience has finally got it. And the reality is we have not talked about this national popular vote and what will be coming up and what direction people need to vote on that near enough. So it's something that you're right. We need to, continue to keep covering, because Dan and I both agree, Cam, Charlie, all of us here, that if we lose the Electoral College in this country, we will then have a democracy and kiss it goodbye. We will no longer be a republic, and it's all over.
Yeah, we will lose the country as we know it.
It's a done deal at that point.
Absolutely. And the whole point of the Electoral College is to give smaller population states like Colorado, Wyoming, Montana,
equal representation.
Exactly.
Which is what a republic is. We are, and I one of the things, Lindsey, I would encourage even you guys to do, and it's something that just continues. I talked about this today with somebody else, and something that just continues to gnaw on me. And we on the right tend to do the same thing, because at times we buy into the same language that the left uses. And it's one of these things where people continue to call the United States of America a democracy. It comes up all the time. You hear it on Fox News. You hear it on local channels. I mean, you name it. And it's not just from the left. We hear this all the time, even from folks on the right, where they will call ourselves a democracy. And we need to continue to correct that. Language matters. And it matters that we continue to tell people that we have a republic, not a democracy, because they are not one and the same. Our founders did not set up a democracy. They set up a republic. And they are frankly, they're worlds apart. They are not one and the same.
Right. Yeah, that's a really good point.
And again, some of the things that, I'll do on air, things that you can do in your end of the world, is continue to drive that home. And the one thing that I've been doing on a regular basis, even when people call in here and say something about democracy, I will stop them. Even candidates. I've had candidates that I've interviewed where they'll say something and they'll say democracy, and I'll stop and say, whoa, time out. Use better words, because it's not. We are not a democracy. We are a constitutional republic, and remember that.
Yeah, words absolutely do matter.
Anyways, just a side note, I know I get off on tangents on that, but again, I think because we've gotten so soft in that area, we now have an entire, Lindsey, I'm going to say 3 generations of young people that don't know the difference between a democracy and a constitutional republic, because we continue to use the words interchangeably.
You're absolutely right.
We have, and by the way, I believe that was on purpose by the left and by the communists that infiltrated this country eons ago, 50, 60, 70 years ago. I believe that was one of the things they tried to do and have accomplished, is they've made democracy and republic synonymous, and they're not. Anyways,
did we lose her? Oh,
you still there, Lindsey? We catch you?
No, yeah, sorry, okay. I'm still here. I completely agree with you.
No, okay. SB 181. What's the impacts on that? How are things going there?
Yeah, so we're just starting to sort of see the impacts of the oil and gas legislation that was passed during the session. And what we're seeing, I think, so people in the industry are saying it's going to be like 6 months to a year before we really see the impacts, and before they start deciding if they're going to pack up and move to, Texas or Oklahoma, Wyoming. But right as it is right now, permitting rate has fallen by 75% in 3 months compared to what it was last year.
Say that again.
The permitting rate has fallen 75% in the last 3 months from what it was last year. People
getting permits to drill has fallen. Am I catching this right? By 75%?
That's right. So right now, drilling is is still happening, but when those permits are over, the future permits are 75% lower.
What you're saying is, in the future, drilling will actually drop by 75%, is what you're saying.
Right, and we saw there were some estimates that came out when this law was going through the session that said a 50% reduction in permitting, they estimated would be an $8 billion loss in state revenue. So it's not looking great.
So this could be potentially a $12 billion loss.
Potentially, yeah. I don't think any of the Democrats are really prepared for what this means for our state's economy.
That's devastating.
Question for you, and maybe you can or can't answer this, and maybe not today, but maybe in the future you could do some research and find out. Could something be done similar to the national popular vote effort? Could something be done along the lines of SB 181 to overturn that by the will of the people? Is that something that could potentially be done, or is this legislation that's been passed, done, handled, there's no turning back?
I don't know the exact answer to that, but I know there's efforts on more local levels, like Weld County, for example, is trying to take what this legislation was supposed to mean, which was more local control and really, keep their oil and gas business alive in that county. But the state is coming back and saying, we have control over parts of the county. You only have control of the city. So it gets really complicated. But I think that there's lawsuits involved in that. And
so, Lindsey, what you're saying is the state came back to Weld County and said that you've only got control over part of your county, and the state has control over the rest of your county.
Correct.
Yeah, pretty much that's what they said.
Boy, there's local control for you.
No,
This whole thing was a sham.
There is no local control. This is not. This is a total sham. Yeah, there is no local control. The state board is basically saying we don't really care what you do. Actually, let me rephrase that. What they're saying, everything I've read, Lindsey, correct me, but really what the state commission is saying is Dan, if you are your own county, as long as you abide by anything we say, you are good to go. Or if you want to up the ante and do some things outside of what we've said to make it stricter, that's fine.
That's the local control.
That's the local control. But you cannot go against anything that we've said or established, and we are still going to be in charge of issuing all permits, not you.
That's kind of like you can have any color you want as long as it's black.
Am I right in saying that, Lindsey? Did I explain that correctly?
Yeah, I think you're right.
Okay. All right, Lindsey, I appreciate all the work that you're doing. Again, help me out when it comes to democracy versus the republic. We'll keep things trucking along on our end. You do the same, and we'll have you back here in the next couple of weeks.
All right. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Lindsey. Appreciate it very much. Let's take a quick time out. Littleton Jewelry is